Hi there, Colin Gwynn here at DJI, and in this video we're going to take a look at installing the Wookong M components into the S800 main hub. So first I'm going to kind of give you a walkthrough of the main hub. As you'll see, there's 3 sets of wires that are pre-soldered onto the power distribution board. You have your thickest set of wires, which is for your 6S LiPo, which is your flight pack. Then the next set of wires next to it, you'll see is labeled PMU. That's for your power management unit. And then the third set of wires here says gimbal, and that is for your ZenMuse gimbal to provide power. So what we're going to do now is install the components of the Wookong M into the main hub of the S800. Those components are the master controller, the IMU, the compass and GPS, the power management unit, the PMU, the LED or light emitting diode, the servo cables, and the post for your GPS. So the first thing that we'll do to install the Wookong M components into the main hub is to take the IMU and install it into the opening that has the arrow. So first you'll put some good, strong, double-sided sticky tape onto the bottom of the IMU, something that's firm. You don't want something really foam and soft that allows the IMU to shake around. You want something that's good and rigid. So a nice, thin, sticky, maybe 3M brand double-sided sticky tape. The reason we do it this way is so that when we attach the IMU to the bottom plate, we can ensure that the edges of the IMU are not touching the edges of the top plate, because any excess vibration that gets to the IMU will cause a degradation of performance in your flight controller. So what we'll do is we'll take our double-sided sticky tape that we've put on the bottom, peel it off. You want to take your CAN bus cable, run it inside of the hole. And the key here is to make sure that you install the IMU such that the edges of the IMU don't touch the edges of the top board. So there's not a lot of clearance. You kind of want to find the center spot, kind of like playing Operation, and drop it into the slot. You can take a little piece of paper and confirm that you have nice clearance around all 4 edges of your IMU. That'll really help you get better performance out of your flight controller. Okay, that looks good. Now, if you'll notice on the bottom of the S800 main hub, we only ship with 6 screws in the bottom plate. That way it's easier for you to take the bottom plate off to install your electronics onto the bottom side of the top plate. Now, after we install all of our electronics, we'll want to make sure that we're careful to install the remaining 19 screws, which are in your bag of 2.5 by 5 millimeter screws. So first, we'll go ahead and remove these 6 screws on the bottom. Now we'll set these aside and Loctite them when we put them back on. When you remove the bottom plate, you'll notice that the IMU comes with it. We can go ahead and set this aside. So what we'll want to do first is take our master controller and our servo cables and attach the M1 to M6 ports to the M1 to M6 ports on the top board. I like to go ahead and put all 6 wires in place here first. Okay, so we have our 6 ports, 6 servo cables plugged into the M1 to M6 ports on the master controller. Now what you want to do is find M1 first, and then look here to see you actually have 8 ports that start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, since this is a hexacopter, we use ports M1 here, which is the 3rd port over, through the N port, which is M6. So let's get started. We'll go ahead and use our servo cables here to attach M1 to M1, M2, to M2, M3, into M3, M4 into M4, 5 into 5, and of course 6 into the M6 port. Now it's time to attach the master controller onto the bottom of the top board. So I generally install the master controller one slot over to the right from the red connectors. That way, when your S800 is fully built and you're looking at the front of your S800, you've got easy access to your USB port for programming. Now I like to do it kind of over here off to the side so we can get maximum bite for the Velcro adhesive. So we'll go ahead and install the adhesive of the Velcro right here onto the bottom of the top plate. So now what we'll do is take off the backing off of the other side of the Velcro. And stick on our master controller right there. So we've got our master controller here. The wires just neatly ran there. You're welcome to loom your wires, zip tie your wires, anything you'd like to do there to customize your build. The next thing that we'll want to do is hook up the power management unit, or the PMU. You'll want to plug in the PMU into the Wookong, into one of the only ports that it fits into. You can use either one of these ports. I attach a little bit of Velcro here as well. This can be installed to your preference. I just put it here. So the next thing we'll want to do is take our LED and install it as well. Now there's a lot of different places that people like to put their LEDs, and there's no right or wrong place for it. It's personal preference. I actually like to sometimes put mine on the back of one of my H-frame tubes or just straight onto the back of the IMU so that you can see it from behind. Some people like to put it facing down, some people like to put it facing out. It's up to you. So for now, we're just gonna plug it in so that it's ready to install wherever we want to install it. So now I'm gonna take this CAN bus plug and I'm gonna plug it right into the PMU. Like that. Velcro down that PMU. So if you'll notice, the power management unit has a servo cable coming off of it with a clearly marked X1 next to that servo cable. That X1 on the power management unit will correspond to X1 input on the master controller. So X1 to X1. There we go. That gives power to our Wookong. So now that all of our wiring is in place, we're gonna go ahead and install the compass. Now we won't be fully installing it at this point. We're just gonna plug it in so that it's easy for later. What I'm gonna do is just feed it in through the top of the top plate. We'll go around and plug into the back side of the PMU. Like that. So that's our compass. It's plugged in. Now that we have all of our wires in place, you've got your receiver in place in one of these openings here. It's time to attach the bottom plate onto the top plate with our 25 screws. First, we want to take the IMU and go ahead and plug it into the master controller. You want to take the cable coming off of the IMU and plug it into the other open port, like so. Then making sure not to cover up any holes. Fit the bottom plate to the top plate. So that looks good. Now we'll go ahead and flip it back over and attach the bottom board to the top board. Now it's important here that we want to make sure to use all 25 screws, and we'll want to put some type of medium strength, which is generally the blue thread locker, on all of your screws. So what I like to do is just dab a little Loctite or thread locker onto my table, give it a little dip, one screw in. So we start with the center screw, Then we work our way out. We do the 6 screws in the next level, then the next 6 screws here, and then finally the last 12 screws around the very perimeter. So now that we have all 25 screws in place and thread locked, it's time to flip it over. You'll see that our IMU is already in place. Now the LED, it's kind of up to you on how you want to install it. Some people like to install it right on the back of the IMU. You can use some double-sided sticky tape if you'd like to attach your LED here, or you can put your LED here on the bottom. It's personal preference. I just kind of slide mine in between the top and bottom board, and it's held nice and firmly in place. You actually don't even really need any double-sided sticky tape there. So now that we have thread locked and tightened all 25 screws of the bottom plate to the top plate, we will now install the compass onto the compass mount. So as you'll see in your kit, the compass mount comes in individual components: the top portion, the bottom portion, and 3 different length carbon rods. In this video, we're using the middle length. Sometimes I use the longer one. There is some merit to having it as high as possible to avoid any kind of interferences. I simply put a little dab of 2-part epoxy on each end of the carbon rod so that it's nice and tight in its assembly. All we're gonna do is take double-sided sticky tape here, double-sided sticky tape here, attach this to the main hub, attach the compass to the top of the compass holder. Later you can zip tie this and you're good to go. So we'll start by putting some double-sided tape right in front of this screw. Take the other side of the backing off, and then we'll just nicely place the bottom of the plate right there. And that is going nowhere. Don't worry. It's nice and rigid. So finally, we'll take the compass and attach it to the top of the post with this other double-sided sticky tape. Now what you want to make sure of is that the arrow of your compass is facing straight ahead, just like the arrow on the Wookong, just like the arrow that's built into that hole in the top of the top board of the center hub. So we just line it up like so, try to get it nice and even on the circular mount, and then press it down. If you'd like, you can take a zip tie and simply attach the wire to the base just to keep it nice and clean. So there you have all of your electrical components, your Wookong M all installed. You will have installed your own receiver into the mix, depending on what kind of receiver you have for your transmitter. And we are ready now to take a look at how we install the arms into the center hub. See you in the next video.